Hey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emotional Entrepreneur with Summer and
Woo!
Woohoo! How are you doing today, everybody out there? Invite your friends to the show because we're talking about something really dynamic. How to be a digital dynamo. Woo!
I'm going to do Pilates in the morning now.
Jen is like, gosh, she's got a lot of energy this morning. I told her I just did Pilates. So, hey dudes. Hey, Viviana. Hey, Chastity. And invite your friends because really this is how to be a digital dynamo. What does that mean? What does your social media strategy look like? It's so important to know what that is and to have a strategy and not just go into it with willy-nilly. So we're going to talk a bit about this today.
What is it?
I don't know. You made me laugh. I thought back about, boy, I should do some Pilates in the morning.
Yeah, I know. Kickboxing.
I know you're doing hardcore stuff, and here I have to go like, low and slow because of my broken foot. That's okay.
At least you're moving.
Right? It's a message from the universe just to keep moving and just keep stretching. And so here we are today on the Emotional Entrepreneur Show with you. Invite your friends because, again, we're talking about how to be a digital dynamo. There's so many things that we can talk about today because social media is an interesting bird for sure, right? So it involves like, how are you mastering it? How are you enhancing your strategies? How are you coming up and showing up and targeting the audience that you want to target if you are an entrepreneur or a business? What does that look like for you? Jen, words?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest complaints I hear about social media is there are people who don't want to show their face, or there's people that are afraid to go on camera and go on live. And I know that's a very valid fear, especially if you're not used to it, or you're starting out, or you're trying to do something and people are like, oh, are you posting on social media? And then you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And, I think one of the things that we have to consider is in today's world, it's been like this for several years now. This is the way people do business. And so it's something that we have to learn how to overcome if you do have that fear, and what is it that you can do so that you can start showing up and get used to the uncomfort. However you complicate that word. Yeah. This morning. So it's like we have to find ways to overcome that fear so that we can show up. And so, yeah, I think that's something that we have to also consider, that, this is how people do business. This is how people are making thousands of dollars a day. It's connecting through social media, and then you throw in automation, you throw in ads. It's crazy. There are people making a crap ton of passive income on social media.
Yeah, so true. You know what I love that you just mentioned, Jen, is feeling uncomfortable. Showing up, showing your face. What does that look like? Talking to a camera, to a phone. How does that feel? Because there is an emotional component to that, right? So my first question to that is, do you believe in what you're selling? Right? Do you believe in it? And I feel like sometimes we believe in it, and we even question. We even question our expertise. We question, are they going to believe us, our believability, our authenticity? There's a lot of things that go on with that, even to the point where I've seen it with some people who have been in a profession for years. It is about being on any kind of stage, whether it's social media, on an actual stage, on a TEDx stage like Jen's been on. So, I mean, it's just, there's so many things that happen to us internally when we're thinking about, wow, we have to be present and we are the face of this business, of this product, of this company. We're the voice. And yet, let's let's step back, right? Because let's kind of and I don't know if I want to call it deconstruct, but let's think about this and think about all the value that you have to bring, all the passion that you feel about what you're doing. And I think if we, instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, what's somebody else going to feel about this? What's somebody else going to think about me? Are they going to believe me? Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Right, Jen?
Right, absolutely. I think, excuse me, I think it's so important to do that, because if we don't, this is when it's like it becomes very difficult to show up, because
Yeah.
now you're fighting all of that stuff, and then you're so concerned and worried about what everybody else is thinking. Then it just kind of ruins everything, and that whole energy is just blown apart, because you're like, and people can see it. I mean, think about some video, or you see people go live. You can tell like they're really passionate about it, or they're really into it, or that they love whatever it is they're talking about, versus somebody who, I don't want to necessarily say they're being fake, but you can just feel that it's just not their jam. It's almost like there's no alignment, and think about how that will affect somebody wanting to either listen or buy from you.
Yeah, very good point, Jen. I've as as somebody who studied psychology for so many years and human development and just the way human behavior, right? You can tell when somebody's authentic by the lines by their eyes, or the lack of lines by their eyes. You can tell by the shifting of their eyes if you're leaning in, not leaning in. I mean, there's so many things that we can tell non-verbally. So if you aren't feeling comfortable about just being you and showing up, people are going to feel it. They're going to know it. And yet, I think it's okay not to feel wholly like, "Oh, I'm so comfortable here. This is so exciting," right? It's okay that you don't feel that way. Embrace it. Embrace it. Step into it. Because the more you step into it, the easier it becomes. I know that when I started a podcast in 2018, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And the lack of comfort and my nerves when I jumped into it, just interviewing people, they were all over the place. And I really had to breathe and center and focus before I went into that interview and just know that I could do this. I'm ready for this. And yet it was something new to me. It was something uncomfortable, but I knew that I wanted to create something that I was passionate about. So when I got past the discomfort and kept in mind the focus and the value and the passion that I had for it, that's what changed the game. So I want to read some of these comments here. So, welcome everybody. Chastity says, to touch on a subject from recent weeks, it's important to know how to communicate your why through your social media presence. Viviana says, it's okay to learn as you go. I think people might connect even more with that vulnerability. Yes, yes, and yes. There was a woman, and she was an incredible speaker. She liked to speak, but she sometimes got very nervous. And we talked about this, and she went into this large audience. I mean, like 1,000 plus people, right? And she said she fumbled. She
Oh,
really
wow.
fumbled, and she apologized. She apologized to the crowd. She's like, I'm just super nervous. It's not that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just really nervous to be here, but I'm excited to be here. And because of that vulnerability, she said, she was like, they gave great reviews. They were excited for her. You could feel the audience pushing her forward and just being behind her. And I was like, yes, that is so exciting to know that when you're vulnerable, people are okay with that.
Yeah,
They
let
more
me finish, and then I have a question on that.
yeah, go ahead.
When something like that happens, I've always wondered, is it better that you take that approach and make it even draw even more attention by verbally saying, I'm nervous, da 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 da, and then like literally vocalize that? Or is it better to just take a pause and not have to go into all of that explanation? The audience knows what's happening, and then to just take a breath and then go into it. I'm just kind of curious.
I think it can go both ways, Jen. But I think that sometimes when people just embrace the vulnerability and they step into it, it makes them feel more comfortable. It
You
makes
mean
them
the person that's going through it?
Yeah, that's going through it.
Okay.
Yeah, the person that's going through it, and it eases them back into, okay, I've got this, but I'm being honest with my audience. It's not that I don't know, I'm just being honest with them. And so even though it takes a moment to go through that explanation, I think that humility, I think that humanism creates a connection
Mhm.
with your audience. I think, like, say for instance, like I saw so many people beyond that TEDx stage. And I
Yeah.
saw a couple fumble, but they kind of took a step back and they went forward and they kept going. And you knew it was happening, but it's TEDx. It's kind of a different presentation, right?
Oh Lord, that's a whole different beast.
Yeah, it's a whole
It's a whole different.
you can speak to that. Go ahead, speak to that.
It's different. It's because I've spoken on different stages, and TEDx was a different thing. I think also because you know that it's being recorded for YouTube. And that's it. That it's not like, oh, somebody caught it with their cell phone. Oh, somebody was there. I mean, there were, obviously there's people in the live audience, but when this was the first time I really had to observe that this experience is going to be completely different than somebody sitting in the seat watching this live, seeing all the behind the scenes, deleted scenes and cuts versus the person who doesn't know anything or doesn't even think about the people in the audience watching it on YouTube, and it's there forever. And I think that was what freaked me out because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be on YouTube. It's gonna be up there. And it's like it's not even my channel. I can't control it.
Yeah.
That freaked me out. So I think when you have that added element of, I think it was even more scary knowing that because of YouTube versus me being on a stage with thousands of people because I've been there before.
Yeah.
It was just weird because I think that you kind of had this feeling like there's gonna be evidence.
Right. And it's permanent, right? That
It's
permanence.
permanent.
And
And
that's what Bibiana said. She said the permanence of that would be nerve-wracking for sure.
I was
Yeah,
freaking out. I was freaking
absolutely.
out. And even if you can edit, you don't know how bad some of the things might go wrong. There's just all sometimes the best editing in the world can't fix some certain things, so it's like this is the
Yeah.
best we could have done, and patching it up, and thankfully it messed up, but I know what you're talking about, Summer, because the one that I was in, there were a few people that fumbled. There was somebody who totally blanked out 3 times and had to keep and I was just like in the back going like, come on, you
I know. I
got it.
know.
Because I know, and I was so thankful. I think I was like number 5 or 6, or I was like in the first third.
Okay.
I was like, man, if I had been on the tail end, I would have just been like,
You're so like me. I want to be the first one to get on and get off.
oh,
Right? That is just me. But you really like being on stage.
oh,
But
I
the
love it.
formula for TEDx is completely different. And that permanence and that feeling of this is going to be on YouTube forever and it's a presentation and you're solely there to present, right? This is your presentation. So it's not like you have that opportunity to step back and go, listen, I'm nervous, folks, right now. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, so
Oh
you
no, you do not do that on that stage.
no, right. So and it's a different beast altogether, right? So I love what you said about that. And my question is to you, Jen, because this all goes to social media strategy. Because and I want to talk about this, but my question to you, Jen, before I move on is when you were on that stage at TEDx and you knew that it was going to be part of social media, did they do any editing prior to it being posted at all?
Yeah.
Oh,
If yeah, they did, and they did tell you too, like it was gonna cost you for every mistake.
wow,
So
really?
yeah, there was, depending on how bad that was an added layer. I can't tell you guys how much I practiced. My son was so sick of my talk. He heard it like every day. I mean, he was like as soon as I started the first line, have you ever given up? He'd be like, like this again. And it was funny because a couple of weeks ago he goes, do you still remember it? I'm like, no. It's like pieces here and there, but
Right?
yeah, but it was like, I mean, I practiced it like a Broadway musical, like all
Yeah.
the time with the movements, the hand gestures, everything, and not one mistake.
Oh,
But I was
you
once I
were
was in the flow, I mean, but I'm
perfection.
telling you, I practiced that thing to ad nauseam. It
Yeah,
was
you were
I
phenomenal.
ingrained it like so much in my head, and I play these weird games like, okay, let's see if I can make it through the whole thing without messing up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I do in my mind. And then I
Yeah,
was like, yeah. So,
yeah,
but it was they did clean it up, especially if some people did need it because
yeah,
they blanked out, they had to compose themselves again, and that was fine. Nobody in the audience. And here's the thing too. This goes to social media. You have to remember, people are, yeah, there's a lot of mean people online. Let's not focus on them. But most people, especially if they love your content, they love you, and they're gonna love you if you're authentic and
yes.
real, and just I'm telling you, the more that you lean into who you are and stop worrying about how you need to show up and how you need to be. And I have kind of gone through a lot of that in this last year. People will start to email you back on your email blast. So people will DM you like, "Oh my gosh, I needed that, or that resonated with me." And I'm telling you from literal experience right now, the more that I'm sending out these emails, and I've been so on it lately, and then you will find that people will respond to you and tell you like, it's because you're showing up the way that you really are.
Yeah,
And I also had to stop worrying about people who weren't going to like what I talked about.
yeah,
And Summer knows this. Like, there's content that I know some groups are not going to like, and I had to just kind of accept that and just be okay with it. And I'm like, you know what, this is dumb. Why am I worried about that percentage? And sometimes I'm even probably projecting and making up a lot of it that's not even happening yet, although I'm basing it off past things that they either have said about other people. But why am I focusing my energy on those people when I could focus on the people who are sending me the messages that they resonate what I'm saying? This totally made sense. This totally helped me out. When you hear those things, that's what you show up for. And
yeah,
that's what you focus on. Those people who are going to support you even when you mess up, even when you have typos in your darn captions. Like, it's like, trust me, the more you mess up, people relate to you being, like we talked about earlier about this lady, human, and the last thing I want to add is, like, when we had our event in San Diego, we did a live event together, Summer and I, and a couple people. One of the things I said on stage was like, no one relates to perfect.
yeah.
It's like, it's kind of nice to admire, but sometimes you get to the point where, like, is it really like that? Right? How many of you guys out there start just kind of, maybe it's just me, but you just go like, okay, I know it isn't always going that great all the time.
Ah,
So we appreciate when people show. That's why, think about this. This is why y'all love behind the scenes stuff. This is why you like to watch the director's cut. This is why you like to watch deleted scenes. This is why you like bloopers.
blooper, right?
Because it's funny. It shows what didn't make the cut. It shows the realness of people, because we live on planet Earth. And so when we want to keep pretending that not pretending, but we are trying to strive for everything to, be perfect. It gets, there's too much pressure.
Yeah,
And I have gotten to the point sometimes, like, it's good enough. Just go. Who cares?
yeah,
And I think the more that we learn to detach from it being like the perfect cut, the perfect, shot that we did, like, you're gonna be able to just relax a little bit more. But I get it. There are times when things do need to have a level of, professionalism and quality, but not every single day. That's just too much pressure.
yeah. Bring in the realism, right? And the reality of what you're doing and behind the scenes, because we are human and we are not perfect, right? I want to read some of these comments. Bibiana says, I think saying it makes you feel more human. Yes. Chastity says, for me, I'm a nervous speaker, but as I continue to talk, my nerves start to fade more and more. I overcome the nerves. Bibiana says, everybody has had that moment and people would relate to it. I know I would. The permanence of that would be nerve-wracking for sure. Chastity says, I would not be ready for a TEDx talk anytime soon. And then Mike, hey, Mike, thanks for joining. Hey, hey, hey. And then Bibiana says, when I delivered my dissertation, I was very nervous and went over and got stopped by the program head. I blinked and spun around in a circle and said, okay, then wrapped it double time. Chastity said, it's wild that sometimes having people in the audience who know you make who make you more nervous than having people you don't know. I try to tell myself that I might not ever see these people again. It helps my
Ooh, yeah.
psych myself out a little bit too. Laugh out loud. And then Babyana says, "Wow, there's so many. You have to you have to have a wing person so you know someone there has your back, and most people want you to win. Love to watch bloopers for sure." Absolutely. So these are all incredible comments because certainly, you know, I love having people that I know around me when I'm doing something, but there are certain people too that I'm like, make me more nervous, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So for instance, I was speaking to an academy, and most of these people were all doctors, all educators, they're all my peers. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I see all these people rolling in 10, 20, 40, 60, 100. I was like, oh, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. So what am I going to do? You're going to get it together, Summer. You're going to breathe into it because you know this stuff. You know your ish, as Jen would say, right? So it's like sometimes you just got to breathe into it. Know that you have value, that you're bringing value, and that you're passionate about what you're talking about, and you know your stuff. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit here because I do want. This is about being that digital dynamo. And part of being that digital dynamo, whether you're on a stage, whether you are posting, whether you are, have an audio that you do every week, a podcast, whatever it is, define your goals. Know what your goals are in relation to what you're doing and why you're putting out there on social media. Know your goals and know what platforms really work for you. I know for so long I was like, I don't want to be on LinkedIn. It's like
You?
snooty. People are oh my God, for years, because it was a different LinkedIn 10 years ago, right? It was completely different.
It's funny. I was so active back then.
Oh my gosh, I was not, and I was just like, ugh, it's boring. I don't like it. I wanted to be on Instagram. I really never wanted to be on TikTok, but now I am because I kind of enjoy it and enjoy the people and, some of the information I get, and it's a lot of fun. But I also need to know why I'm there, right?
Right.
And how
That's key. I like that. I love that you said that.
why I'm there and how much time I'm going to dedicate to that platform. Now, LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. It's changed so much over the years, and I have some of the best connections and people, authentic, meaningful relationships that I built on there. So much so that I just can't thank some of those people enough, right? Because they've really, when you talk about an audience that is there rooting you on behind the scenes as well as in front, it's there. I've had it. I've grown it. People have helped me develop it, and it's been a wonderful experience. So get to know the platforms that you're thinking about being on. Understand why you want to be there. Know your audience. Really know your audience, and really, who are you creating your messages for? Like, what are those messages? So when you're thinking about a strategy as an entrepreneur, as somebody in business, as somebody who wants to relay a message, do you know your audience? Have you researched your audience? Do you know what you're tapping into, what they like, what they're going to stay around for? Are they going to stay around for these messages? Are they going to stay around for this show? Are they going to join you every week? By the way, thank you everybody who does join us every week. So,
We love
you
you
know,
guys. Seriously, you make our Tuesdays and make our week.
you so do. So, I mean, these are really important concepts and thoughts and basic foundational things that you want to know when you're growing your social media. You also want to leverage your analytics. And maybe Jen wants to talk about analytics because she's probably better at analytics than me.
I have gotten super nerdy about analytics. Like I literally track it like once a week. I didn't do it this past Friday. I need to do it. But once a week I have it charted down like the platform, even my email blasts that go out, how many am I sending a week? What's the percentage of it going up or down on different things? How many have followed? What are the impressions, post impression? I mean, I am tracking everything.
Wow.
And my list keeps growing. And I got to tell you, we've heard that phrase, what gets measured gets improved. And
Mhm.
I gotta say, in this situation, absolutely, because since I've gotten even more intentional with it, my numbers are constantly going up. Now, I will say there's gonna be sometimes some things where, it might not always. Okay, I'll give you an example. Instagram, that number is dropping. And I know why too, because I'm also cleaning it up. I'm unfollowing accounts, and I'm like, why am I even following this? And so I don't, and I personally don't do follow for follow. Like if you follow me, that's great, but just because you follow me doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to follow you back. Especially if it's not content that I need to, subscribe to or see. So that's just my personal thing. I don't do follow for follow necessarily. Now, if your
Right.
content resonates with me, I feel in alignment with you, yeah, I will probably follow back. Or if I have met you outside of the platform and I want to support you, yes, I will follow back. But I don't generally just do that. Or when people like, yeah, anyways, that's a whole different thing. But tracking your analytics is important. It lets you, once you start to get the data in, you're able to analyze it in the sense of like, oh, this was performing better when I posted at 9 a.m. versus 7 a.m. Or because if you
Mhm.
don't look at the numbers, you're not going to know what to improve.
Right.
Plus, I kind of gamify it. Like I make everything a game in my mind. So I will test the competitor in me. I will look at it and be like, okay, now I'm excited, right? I'm like, okay, I want the numbers to go up. This is reaching other people. Okay, great. More people are seeing this. And then it's funny. You start to see too, wow, that post did pretty crappy. Like it's just funny how some take off, some don't take off. And I will tell you this, and I've explained this in another mastermind group that I'm in right now, and because I become the poster child for the lady that's leading it. She's like, "Yeah, Jen, you're the analytics person now." And I told everybody that when you start tracking it and you start to look at it in numbers, this is important. You start to get detached by who's not liking, how many things are, posting and getting reactions. You start to look at it like data, and you start to pull away from taking things personally. Because some people don't want to post because like, well, no one's gonna like it, or well, I didn't get that many reactions. And if you follow Gary Vee, he talks about vanity metrics, and so it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, nobody's liking it. But if you start to do this in a methodical, analytical way, you will start to get detached from that high and that stuff. You start to look at it purely by numbers. I'm not saying don't be human and don't be emotional, but we get caught up in that, and then it causes some of us to not want to post. And that's the danger. Then you're not being active on in letting people know about what you're up to and what you're doing. And if you're trying to make money, then I don't know why unless you're just posting pictures about your food and cats and dogs. I mean, we're here as entrepreneurs trying to sell our things and our services, right? So it's very interesting how it will start to have, for me, I noticed I started to have that effect of like, oh, this is just numbers. It's just, if you're just looking at the data as feedback, it tells you what to focus on, when to post, what's resonating with people. I want to tell you this too. Here's another tip. Like when you start to post things about something in your day, and it doesn't have to be the craziest thing. I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking like, I don't have a crazy story. I don't have anything interesting. Like it could be the dumbest thing, like, something fell off the shelf at the grocery store. And then it made you think about when you fell. I don't know, anything, right? It could be something so simple. Make up a story think about, make up a post about something that happened. People connect to that story. It doesn't always have to be buy my offer. We have to be careful of that. Your posts don't become buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this.
Yeah.
You got to provide value. And so you got to earn people's trust when you're posting. And so when you do get to the point when there's something to sell, a ticket to an event, an offer that you're making, a product or program, then it doesn't become, oh, here we go again, she's only asking to buy something, right? So it's kind of
Right.
like give and take where 80% give, 20% ask.
Right.
That's another thing that I've been, because there's times that was the other thing that also caused me to be active, because if I'm going to push like my book or, a program, like who am I to all of a sudden, I didn't say anything for so long. And now all of a sudden, hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. It's like, that's lame. It's like the friend who only calls you when they have a problem.
Yeah.
You don't want
Right.
to be that person, right?
Yeah.
So something to think
Absolutely.
about with your activity.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much. We've
Welcome.
gotten to over 30 minutes, but I wanted to go through a couple of different things because you mentioned measures, analytics, even on MailChimp, we send out a newsletter, right, about the show, and it will tell you when to post, the best time to post your newsletter. So it is queuing in to those analytics. So that's so important. And it's also important what Jen said. There's a removal from that emotional connection when you begin to think of it from an analytical standpoint, right? And that makes a difference. Do you know that California is looking at putting on disclaimer now on social media because it's causing, just for the vanity metrics, is causing so many issues with our young folks and mental health. So we really want to start shifting our mindset about how we look at social media. Yes, we can make great connections, but I think it's meaningful connections. And I think, Jen, you mentioned so many things. We've got such a list here. If you missed any of this, please go back because there's so many tips about how you can be a digital dynamo. Jen, I know we need to close out, but I want to mention this. I also like what you mentioned about posting for people to get to know you and posting something that's going to engage the audience. I'm going to give you a quick example. This last weekend, I went to Lowe's and I was debating whether or not to post this, and I haven't posted it yet. So you're first to hear this, but I went in there. This lady stops me. She starts asking me a question about where something is. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't work here. And she goes, you don't? You look like somebody who should work here. And she goes, I said, well, I don't. I don't know exactly what that means. But she goes, well, you should work here. She went on. She went on.
It's getting worse.
And it got worse. And I was like, ah! So I was like, should I share that with my social media family?
Oh,
Should I
yeah.
get their input? Like, because I'm not making this up. This is real stuff, folks, right? And so I have a personal Instagram page and I have a professional Instagram page. So I thought, well, if I'm going to share it, I'll share it on my personal Instagram page because I know my why there. I know why I'm sharing there because I want people to get to know me. They know, the funny side of me. They know the different personal side of me than maybe my other page. So we can talk more about this, but there's so much to talk about here when you're thinking about being a digital dynamo. So Bibiana says, it's so easy to get sidetracked. What? Random. Bibiana says, did you have a utility belt on? I did not. And I was like, okay, not sure where this is coming from, but okay.
She had an orange apron on.
Yeah, no, I did not.
Wow, that was.
Yeah, I had all kinds of things running through my head. All kinds.
You know what? You should have asked me, yeah, what do you need? I'll be right back. And never come.
I'll get right on that, right? So I was just like, okay, but what does that mean, right? So anywho, with that said, there are all kinds of ways you can show up on social media. You can be a digital dynamo, know your why, know your passion, have that confidence, know your analytics. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. Jen, what's your nugget?
My nugget is it's homework. Check your platforms, whether on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, or Instagram. Check your profile, your bio.
Yes.
And I want you to test it or even read it to yourself. And if it's not clear what you do, work on it. It needs to be crystal clear in like one line what it is that you do. Sometimes people are putting like, I love Jesus, dog lover. But if you're a business, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're a business, if you're a consultant or whatever it is, you sell something, that doesn't tell your audience what it is you do to help them. That's for you. That's for you. So check your bio profiles and check to see if it's very clear. You don't want to have people have to go to your website if you have one to figure out what it is that you do. Yeah. Make sure your bio profile, your one-liner is so clear that it's like mine is money mindset for creatives.
Yeah. Love it.
Or, something very, very clear and short. I shouldn't have to try to dig and have to look at the first 9, posts to figure out what it is that you do. So that's something for you to check to increase, awareness of what it is that you're doing.
Ah, love it. Love it.
Thank you. How about you? What's your nugget?
So my nugget is really start researching and understanding and really checking in with yourself about the platforms that you're on. Even if you need to pull back on certain platforms, which will give you more time to invest in other platforms that you really enjoy, it's like getting really granular about your message. It's getting really granular about what social media platforms you're going to use and the reason why you're using them and how you're going to build that community. So really check yourself, because I think a lot of times we want to spread ourselves so thin like we do as entrepreneurs and have a really broad message, but we're not reaching the people we want to reach. So when you are very granular about the platforms that you're on, I think you're going to reach more people in an authentic way, and you're going to invest more time because you're going to enjoy those platforms. So
I agree.
that is my nugget. All right, everyone. We are going to be signing off. So you know how we do this. We dance in and we dance it out. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We so enjoyed our time together. And make sure you join us next week, because we got another really interesting topic that we're going to cover. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Woo! Thank you, everyone.